Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja Devedi, and in this segment today we are going to discuss about the scheduled tribes in India. This topic is important from the perspective of prelims and also from the perspective of GS mains papers. So let's begin with the topics of discussion that we are going to look at. Now, if we talk about GS paper, as we are going to discuss about Bhagwan Birsa Munda, so of course paper 1 from the perspective of that. Then political and administrative history of the scheduled tribes is also going to be covered. That means GS paper 2 is also going to be there. And economic section as well as social structure will also be there. That means GS paper 3 will be covered. So this is going to be a pretty interesting as well as long segment, as we are going to cover it from the perspective of many papers. Kindly pay attention and be patient. Okay, so let's move on and talk about why is it in the news. Now, as we know that the 15th of November from now onwards, as a part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav as well, and for the future years to come, will be celebrated as Janjatiya Gaurav Divas, because 15th of November actually marks the birthday of Bhagwan Birsa Munda, who led the Munda rebellion, and also he led such movements which could pave the way for the better safeguard to the tribal section of the population in Jharkhand. So be very patient with everything that we are going to cover. I will try to make it really brief, but also make sure that I don't rush, okay, for you to understand. So one thing that we need to know here is that first we will try to understand the importance of the tribes in India. Also from the historical perspective, we are going to discuss about Bhagwan Birsa Munda and also the Munda rebellion. So many things are going to be there. Many facts are going to be there. Please note down everything that I'm going to tell you. Moving on, let's talk about Bhagwan Birsa Munda. Birsa Munda, he was born on 15th of November 1875, which also marks the foundation day of Jharkhand. In November 15, 2000, Jharkhand was separated from Bihar, and Jharkhand actually means the land of forest. And Birsa Munda, he was also known as Dharti Abba. He was a social reformist. Social reformist in the sense, not only did he try to make the people of his own tribe aware about the importance of reformation, but also acted against the British when he could see that the social and economic as well as traditional structure of the system was being damaged because of the ever-growing need and greed of the British. And Bhagwan Birsa Munda, as we have all studied it in history, about him in history, this is just a revision for you. Okay, so Bhagwan Birsa Munda, only on his birthday, the Janjatiya Gaurav Divas will be celebrated every year. And there are also, apart from the birthday celebrations every year as Janjatiya Gaurav Divas, we also have a full-fledged museum dedicated to the 10 tribal leaders of India. And these 10 tribal museums are very important from the perspective of prelims. Kindly search about it as well. Okay, so let's talk about a brief profile of Bhagwan Birsa Munda. He was also known as Dharti Abba, or father of the earth. He mobilized the entire tribal community, the Munda tribe basically, against the British, and also forced the colonial officers to introduce one law protecting the land rights of the tribals, because of the passing away of different land parcels that belong to the Munda tribes to money lenders, that the Munda tribe eventually came under the garb of the money lenders. So they, without any thought process of the traditional structure, kept on selling their lands to outsiders, and outsiders were known as Dikus. So against Dikus, the entire rebellion was there. He also started the faith of Bir Sat, and this was actually against the missionary influx that was happening at that time, and members of not only the Munda but also Orang tribes joined in. Okay, Bir Sat sect. It could be a prelims question. Who started the Bir Sat sect? It's Bhagwan Birsa Munda. And this is the Munda tribe that we are going to discuss about. Every information is very factual and authentic because it has been directly taken from the government website of Jharkhand. Okay, so this is a picture of the tribes of Munda, and it's a powerful tribe of the Cholarian group in Jharkhand. Yes, and they treat their native land as Tibet. According to their own folklore, they belong to Tibet, but different researchers did not show that they actually belonged to Tibet. And they came to, from there they came to Madhya Pradesh from the treaty land of Karnataka and Maharashtra. And Tibetan hieroglyphs are found in the script of Mohenjo-daro. Now, this is important from the perspective of ancient history, so keep this in mind. And which may have been written in the language used by the Munda. Okay, so there is not an apt amount of information from where they came, but there is a pretty amount of information where they resided. They resided in the regions of Jharkhand. Okay, now let's move forward and talk about the status of scheduled tribes according to the constitution. In layman's term, what are scheduled tribes? First of all, tribe is a group which is native to a place. This tribe or this group of people have been residing in a specific region since the very beginning, and in India they are known as, that is why they are known as Adivasis. That means residing from the very beginning, and the others who have come along, they are actually foreigners. So this is actually a layman term for scheduled tribe. Now, according to the constitution, what is the constitutional status? Now, the term scheduled tribe was first ever appearing in the Constitution of India, and there are some articles dedicated to them. Kindly pay attention that Article 366 Clause 25 of the Constitution of India has defined. Now, this is, of course, I am going to read because this is the language of the Constitution. I cannot use my own language. Okay, so defined scheduled tribes as the such tribes or tribal communities or parts of a group within such tribe or tribal community as are deemed as under Article 342 to be scheduled tribes for the purpose of this constitution. In simple terms, what does it mean? Any group which has been defined under Article 342 shall be deemed as the scheduled tribe. Okay, simple as that. Whatever listing has been done according to the Article 342, important articles 366 Clause 25, then we have Article 342. Okay, and who is going to define or who is going to choose amongst the group which group is a scheduled tribe and which is not? The president may, again I am quoting, that is why it is reading, may with respect to any state or union territory, state and union territory, and where it is a state, after consultation with the governor. Important factual points to be taken from here. President has to consult with the governor. That means president has to consult with the state government. Okay, and thereof, after consultation, the president has to give a public notification to specify the tribes or tribal community or parts of or group within tribes or tribal communities. That means there could be specified one single tribe or many sub-tribes within that tribe, because sometimes we have umbrella tribes like the Naga tribes, because Naga tribe is actually it's an umbrella tribe, it's a huge group of tribe, and under that only we have many sub-tribes. So that also is done by the president in consultation with the state government. Okay, and for the purpose of this constitution is deemed to be the scheduled tribe. Okay, simple. President has to make sure that in whatever state or union territory a group has to be announced or notified as a tribe, has to consult with the governor, that means the state government, and after that he or she, the president, has to give a public notification to tell a specified group is a scheduled tribe in that state. Okay, now this is very important from the perspective of prelims, do remember it. And also after that, the parliament, then now after the president we have the parliament. Parliament may by law include in or exclude from. That means parliament has the power to include a group of tribe as scheduled tribe and also exclude, remember, from the list of scheduled tribes. Okay, specified in a notification issued under clause 1, any tribe or tribal community or part of or group also within any tribe or tribal community, but save as aforesaid, a notification issued under the said clause shall not be verified by any subsequent notification. That means who are in power? The president, the state government, and then the parliament. And what is this name, scheduled tribe? Why they are known as scheduled tribe? Now, scheduled tribes are known as scheduled tribes because they are defined under, they are actually put under the Schedule 5 of the Constitution. And Article 366, Clause 25 has defined scheduled tribes as such tribes. We have already talked about this, so we shall not talk about this anymore. 342, remember, and 366, Clause 25 has said whatever tribes are there under the 342 article are going to be put under the Schedule 5 and they are known as scheduled tribes. Okay. And what is the criteria? See, there is no such criteria specified into the Constitution, but there are certain criteria with respect to having a convention set that if a tribe actually check boxes everything that has been there for the previous tribes, it's going to be a scheduled tribe. First is geographic isolation. Second, they should be shy of coming in contact to the outsiders, not any kind of integration. Okay, so geographical isolation is there. Then we have shyness from outside communities. We also have a distinct culture, right? A distinct culture should be there. Backwardness should be there, and there is one more. Can you tell me in the comment segment one more criteria? There are 5 criteria. I have told you 4. You have to tell me the last one. Okay. So importance has been given through these criteria: geographical isolation, then we have shyness, then we have distinct culture and backwardness, and one more is then you have to tell me in the comment segment. And also we have to discuss here National Commission for Scheduled Tribe. Now, National Commission for Scheduled Tribe is actually devoted for the well-being of the scheduled tribes, and it was established by amending Article 338. Earlier, the National Commission for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribe used to look at the welfare of the scheduled tribes as well, in addition to the scheduled castes. But because of the importance that has risen for the integration and assimilation of the scheduled tribes, a different commission had to be formed. And that was because of the amending of Article 338 and inserting a new article, Article 338A. 338 was different, and 338 after amending became 338A for the welfare of the scheduled tribes with respect to forming a commission. Okay, and that was brought through by the Constitution 89th Amendment Act of 2003. Also, by this amendment, now we have discussed about that, so I shan't talk about this anymore, that scheduled caste and scheduled tribe used to be looked at by the same commission, and now it was differentiated. Okay, and then just remember, tribes, it was replaced by 2 separate commissions. Okay, the first one is scheduled caste and the second one is scheduled tribes. Remember that. Then that happened in 19th of February 2004. These certain prelims fact are going to help you, so be kind enough to note them down. As you can see, according to the 2011 census, the percentage of the population of scheduled tribe has increased, and that was compared to the 1951 census. It's now approximately 8%. So this is according to the 2011 census. And remember that the 1931 definition was used with respect to the census and counting of the scheduled tribes. So keep all these things in mind. Now let's move forward and talk about the certain contributions of different tribes, because of course we are discussing about tribes. We are going to discuss about the Bhil rebellion, we are going to discuss about the Munda rebellion and Sadanthal rebellion. So these are important prelims facts, and also if mains answer writing comes along, you can of course talk about the pre-independence era contribution with respect to settling the agrarian structure or the traditional fabric of the community when we talk about tribes. So when we talk about Bhil rebellion, it's a tribal legacy of the 1930 Mangar Hill massacre. Mangar Hill massacre is also known as the Jallianwala Bagh massacre of the Wagad region, and a Mangar museum is also going to be dedicated. That is going to be amongst the 10 museums which are going to be built under the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav that we are celebrating this year. And Bhil social reformer and spiritual leader Govind Guru, he led this entire rebellion, and this was on the borders of Gujarat and Rajasthan. The movement entire was on the same zeal as the independence of India. So let's move forward and talk about it more. That over 1500 Bhils, they sacrificed their lives fighting against the British forces because the entire plan of Govind Guru, who was leading the Bhil rebellion, it was actually frustrating the British. The British were not happy and they started harassing their followers. Because of course, whenever the traditional rights of the community are going to be snatched, they will of course feel unsafe and they will start rebelling. And that is what happened. And the leader was Govind Guru. Remember this name, this could be asked. And what is this? Mangad Hill Massacre. Okay, remember that also. So Govind Guru started working with the Bhil community during the Great Famine. And that Great Famine was in 1899, 1900s, when the Munda rebellion was also there. Okay, so at that point of time, tribal rebellions or tribe rebellions were very much into the vogue. Also, if we talk about the impacts on it on the British, as I told you, they were not happy. And also, Govind Guru, he started reforming the entire community. He wanted to reform the structure of the community itself by taking certain steps such as stop the consumption of liquor and also many other things. So he advocated systematically fighting social problems. That means he wanted to remove the social problems so that a more integrated and stronger structure of the community could be built. If a community is going to engage into certain activities which are harmful for the community in the individual level, at the individual level, and as a whole, that community cannot fight in unison. So that was the entire problem. And that was against liquor consumption and intergenerational debt. That means my father took a debt, then I have to repay the debt, or if I am unable to repay the debt from my own income, then I will take debt from somebody else and then my child will pay. So that was also something that the Bhil community leader wanted to reform. And he united the community. First, unification was done, spread awareness about their identity, made them aware about their identity, the importance of their land, the importance of their culture. That means a social reformer. Also, establish schools and address the spiritual hunger of the masses. So we have many hungers, such as we have the hunger of economy. That means we have economic hunger, we want to earn money. We have political hunger. That means we want to be integrated into the political structure. We have physical hunger. We also have the normal like food hunger for food. We also have spiritual hunger. That means we need to be connected with ourselves. So the spiritual guru, Govind Guru, he fulfilled all those things. And when spiritually he fulfilled, that means he was becoming a great leader. He made people understand the self-connection that they should have with themselves. Okay. Now moving forward, what happened after that? Bhagat Sampradaya was also started by him. It was also led by him in 1908. This could be a prelims question. And to socially and morally uplift the Bhil community. Remember, if it's asked in the prelims, Bhagat Sampradaya movement belonged to which community? This movement belonged to which community? Bhil community. It was led by Govind Guru in the year 1908. And the state started harassing the followers of the Govind Guru. State, that means the British. On November 17, 1913, the dark day, the hillock at Mangad, a congregation was called by Govind Guru. That means a group of people were called by Govind Guru. And what happened after that? The same as Jallianwala Bagh massacre happened. That hillock was surrounded by the British and they shamelessly opened fire. And so many people, so many members of the Bhil community died. And the sacrifice of the Bhils, it became a beacon of hope for other tribes in the independence, through the independence. Let's move forward and talk about the Munda rebellion. Now, as I have already told you, and we have of course studied about it so many times, this is the revision, and for those who are new, kindly pay attention. So it was led by Birsa Munda. Remember the timeline. And what was it against? It was against the land policies of the British when they starting to intrude into the land matters of the Munda community. Now what started happening? That their land started to go out to the outsiders or the Dikus, because Hindu landlords and money lenders, they used to provide money, they used to give money to the Munda community when they ever needed to pay their debts off or pay the revenue to the British. What happened? If the Munda community member wasn't able to repay the debt, the money lenders would take their land. Now that also caused economic stress. And missionaries, the influx of missionaries to convert their faith, that is why the Bir Seth faith was started, to convert their faith, that means to snatch their identity, that they have actually linked it with their own culture. That was also something Birsa Munda's followers were against. Let's move forward and talk about the term that it is used for. Ulughulan, or the Great Tumult, it is used for the Munda rebellion, for establishing the Munda Raj, driving out the British, and that was led by Birsa Munda. And Birsa's follower began targeting the symbols of Diku. Diku means outsiders. They also used certain very traditional and religious terms, such as outsider used to be known as Ravan, and then Dikus were known as outsiders. So these terminologies were also made by them to actually have a cultural identity amongst them. If I, as a person, will be able to find a common ground with different people, I can become a leader. So that is a very good quality that Birsa Munda had. And they attacked the police stations. That means whatever symbols of the British Raj were there, they started attacking them. That means this is a sheer attack on the policies of the British. And they raised the white flag as a symbol of Birsa Raj. That means they had their own aspirations with respect to having a Raj that was their own. Okay, so that means they wanted the foreigners, foreigners not only consisted of the British, but also Dikus or money lenders who used to take off their land, and somebody who's coming in to invest in their place. And the result of the Munda rebellion was great. That was the Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act of 1908. Although Birsa Munda was captured when he was sleeping in a forest in Chakradharpur, Jharkhand with his army, he was captured by the British, and as claimed by the British, he died of cholera. Okay, so he died of cholera, as according to the British, at a very young age. So that is also very sad. But what came out of this price, that the Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act of 1908 was passed, that got the Mundas some recognition to the tribes, Kunkati rights, and the bait bakery was banned. Okay, let's move forward and talk about Santhal rebellion. Now, Santhal rebellion is also very important. Santhal rebellion, it had the timeline of 1855, just before the revolt of 1857 started. So the Santhals, they are the largest tribes group in India today as per the population figure. Remember this very clearly. And the Santhal rebellion actually had its grounds in Jharkhand, Odisha, West Bengal. Very important. Hotspots were Jharkhand, Odisha, and West Bengal. And the battle, after the Battle of Plassey, 1757, when the British came into the economic picture of Bengal, that time Bengal was an integrated Bengal, not today's Bengal, but the entire region comprising of Odisha, West Bengal, Bihar, and Jharkhand. So when they came into the picture, they started having their own policies with respect to the land revenue system. And that was not fitting well with the Santhal groups. And the Santhal life was disrupted by the onslaught of the Zamindari system that they introduced. Right? Zamindari was introduced by the British, which had many middlemen between the rent collector or the revenue collector, that is the British, and the tribals. So they lost their land if they were not able to pay the revenue. And they were rendered landless because of that, bonded laborers in their own homes. That means somebody gives me debt, or I am not able to pay the revenue to my master, that was the British. Now what happens? My land will be snatched off from me, and then I will be able to work on my land itself and without any remuneration. So I am becoming a landless bonded labor. So on 30th June 1855, Santhal brothers, namely Sidhu and Kanhu, Murmu organized 10,000 Santals and proclaimed a rebellion. Now again, similar reasons are there for major tribes. Tribes were undisturbed during the time of the previous rulers, but now these new rulers started coming into the picture to have their own greed fulfilled by taking the traditional economy away from who all are depending on it. And that is the reason for every tribe. The Murmu brothers, sisters, Phulo and Jano also played an active part in the rebellion. Remember these names. And about 15,000 Santhal villages, including the Murmu brothers, they were killed and their village destroyed, because although it's allowed that they had a very, actually they did not have the power to match the prowess, the military prowess of British. So British had many advanced machinery, weapons, but of course, as they were tribes, they were depending on bows. So although the British came to civilize the tribes, the barbaric, but the tribes did not use poisonous arrows. They did not want to use the poisonous arrows on their enemies, and that was the reason that so many people of the Santhal tribes were dead, were killed mercilessly. Moving on. Now, martial law, it was declared on 10th November 1855. It lasted till 3rd January 1856. And the British, after that, price was paid. What was the result for this? Santhal Parganas Tenancy Act in 1876. And it offered certain protection to the tribes who are dependent on the land. Okay, so as we can see that the result is something fruitful, but the cost is very high of that. That means if a proper communication could have been done, but why not? Why to communicate when the sheer need was profit making? It was not service. So we shan't, of course, discuss about that. Now let's talk about the political and administrative history of the tribes. Now if we talk about that itself, Regulation 13 of 1833, what did it do? It created non-regulation provinces and were to be governed by special rules for civil and criminal justice, collection of land revenue, and so on. In simple terms, the unification of certain regions which had a different living style, which had a different culture. They have their own distinct identity. They were pretty backward if they were compared to the rest of the regions. So they had their own rules and regulation, and these were known as non-regulated according to Regulation 13 of 1833. So acknowledgement was done about the tribes, and it introduced a new system of administration. Like, of course, right now we also have, based on these small steps only, we have a larger picture of them in our constitution, that we have autonomous hill councils for scheduled tribes in many states. So 10 states are there in Schedule 5, and certain 4 other states are also there in Schedule 6. So if we talk about Schedule 6, we have Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram. These were not included in the Government of India Act 1935. So after independence, they got a separate schedule, that was Schedule 6. And in the Northeast region, the British put in force the Inner Line Regulation of 1873. That means certain rules of the British were not applicable to the region behind the inner line of permit. Okay, and the influx or the movement of outsiders to this region was also prohibited. And as per the Government of India 1919, this Act of 1919, that is Montagu-Chelmsford Reform, the Governor General was exclusively responsible for law and administration and could act through local officials in this region. Who was appointed for this special course? That was Governor General. Also, according to the Act, Government of India Act 1935, the governor could determine the policy directly or through his agents in the tribal area, like we have the president right now working through the governors in the different states and union territories. And after independence, we have already talked about Article 366, Clause 25, Article 342 and 338. That happened. And we have already discussed it over there, so I'm not going to do it right now. But if we talk about Article 342 and Schedule 5, that was also amended with the help of provisions of Panchayat Extension to Scheduled Areas Act of 1996. That means the Panchayati Raj was given a constitutional status in 1992. So what happened because of that? Local government started coming into the picture, and more democratization was also needed in certain areas which are scheduled tribe areas. So for helping that, we have provision of Panchayat extension to Scheduled Areas Act, that is PESA Act, PESA Act. And the 6 scheduled areas are some of the areas which were excluded, that I told you: Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram. Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizo. Remember it like that. Okay. So Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram are there in the 6th schedule. And these were not included in the Government of India 1935. So after that, they were included so that more special attention could be given. Now, these are the 6 scheduled ones, have also been given special provisions under Part 21 of the Constitution. And they are also governed through their own councils, hill councils, like Bodo Hill Council is there, Karbi Anglong Hill Council is there. So the protection of the cultural identity that is deeply having its roots in the local structure is there. Also, areas where scheduled tribes are numeric minority, they are a part of the general administrative structure of the country. Okay. And certain rights have accrued to scheduled tribes across the country through reservation in not only education but also in the workspaces. So as we understand that integration was done, but there are certain challenges. These challenges are actually with respect to the sheer nature of the tribes and how they are evolving. They have not been able to evolve on a larger scale. First challenge is because of the massive development displacement. Mining activities, road and construction, and many other infrastructural activities occur in the forest area right now, especially with respect to the encouragement of agriculture, and the population is ever increasing. The infrastructure has to be matching the demand of the time. So displacement of the people who are dependent on that region has not been done on a very satisfactory scale. Although we have Scheduled Tribes and Other Forest Dwellers Act of 2005 and 6. So that was able to provide certain scheduled tribe and other forest dwellers. It's 2006. Okay, not 2005. So that was given proper attention. Through that, rehabilitation and protection of their identity was done. But many were left behind because of not having proper documentation. Working of legislations such as different legislations, we have PESA Act. It has not actually conferred the real powers. It has up to an extent, but the satisfactory level is not a lot. Although government has done a lot when we talk about increasing the number of Eklavya schools, encouraging the importance of education with respect to mother tongue through the new education policy, but still some plugs have to be put into the gaps that remain. Okay, policies and practice laws have been slow to absorb the changing circumstances. That means the changes are a lot, but accordingly the upgradation in the law has been slow. Poverty that is attributed to the geographical isolation of the tribes. It's like letting them live the way they are living, not trying to upgrade them. That is another cause, that they are still dependent on their agrarian and their previous structures. Okay, and the state is actually pursuing for tribals is assimilation rather than integration. That means assimilation and integration has a little bit of difference. Assimilation means losing your identity, just get intermixed into whatever the homogeneity is there right now. But integration is respecting their cultural difference, respecting their unique identity, and yet be a part of the polity. That means whatever has been done, it is being done on the artificial level rather than the deep root level. Okay, let's move forward and talk about more challenges. That means inadequate resource allocation, not a lot of compensation has been given to the displaced, and the developmental activities which should be encouraged with respect to the tribes are not getting proper funding. Also, poor implementation of different programs is offered as another explanation for the issue of lack of social development. They need certain activities to engage with the society. For that, proper funding and proper channelization of funding is also not there. Another argument we have is poor development of the tribal population. It is built around the issue of traditional socio-economic aspects. I, as a part of the tribal community, will only be depending on such cultural identity my ancestors have dependent upon. That means I am actually persisting with the same sort of mindset and I am not upgrading myself so that I can also have an upgradation with respect to the current society and the current global norms. And there is a need to engage with the larger question of, do we need to assimilate, just assimilate, or integrate? That means respecting their cultural identities and uniqueness with the actual integration into the development of the entire economy. Also, overcoming the tribal isolation is necessary. Although it remains a criteria for having a group to be cited as a tribe, but isolation should not become the sole criteria, right? The model of development has been also questioned. How to develop? Is there any policy problem that we are not able to solve with respect to the development of the tribal cultures? That is also questioned. Is there some kind of policy lacks when we talk about the Scheduled Tribes and Other Forest Dwellers Act of 2006? Is there any issue with respect to the discriminatory policies that we have right now and not being able to put properly into place? The SC and ST Prevention of Cruelty Act of 1989. So all that is need to be questioned. Laws and rules that is providing protection to the tribes are being regularly manipulated. That means certain loopholes are being exploited. Certain loopholes, every law has a loophole. But because of the stagnation of the laws and the acts, there is no upgradation. There is no constant interpretation. Because of that, loopholes continue to exist and those loopholes are being manipulated by the outsiders. And violence. Violence in the sense, whenever this group, tribal group, will not have proper avenues to look for economic activities, they will start to integrate into the radical movement. They will be radicalized. So left-wing extremism or Naxalism, it is very prevalent in those regions and it has a bulk of recruitment from the tribal population. Let's move forward and talk about the way forward. Multi-pronged approach is needed when we talk about the health, education and agriculture. Agricultural lands should be protected, that they have community rights. So we have the Act of Scheduled Tribes and Other Forest Dwellers Act. That should be continuously interpreted. Also, awareness regarding those acts should be increased. Health. In the health sector, we know that because of the close living style of the tribes with the animals, many zoonotic diseases continuously plague generations of those tribes. So proper research has to be done and proper policies of immunization plus medication should also be done. Education, we have Eklavya schools, and Eklavya schools are actually really residential school which gives an all-round development to the students of the scheduled tribes. So that is all on the rage right now. That is also working very well. New education policy, as it respects the usage of mother tongue through the initial level of learning, the cultural identity should be protected with the help of NEP 2020. We have to focus on real integration. That means we can let the tribes, we should, of course, not who are we to let, but we should encourage the tribes to continue with not morally or physically harmful, but better cultural traditions, whatever they are carrying on, but also respect them at the same time and also give them the constitutional respect that every citizen in India is receiving right now. And awareness programs should be launched, and this should be done with the state governments so that local government at the local level can help the tribes to have an awareness about their rights, their duties, and also about the reasons that they should continue on upgrading their own structure, their own tribal structure, and that is all will help. Let's move forward and talk about the question, means-based question, okay? What do you understand by scheduled tribes? Discuss the contributions made by scheduled tribe in pre-independence era. So that's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated and thank you so much for watching.